So this is it, the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. It's got to be really complicated.
Though we're talking about corporations and money, remember, it's all about the land. Alaska's native connection to the land is a spiritual one that's older and runs deeper than the law Congress passed. Check this out.
It sought to do justice. Justice is rarely ever a perfect thing. It is so often a matter of compromise. But in this instance, it sought to do justice, and it sought to recognize that the Native people took their grievances and their desires to the Congress of the United States, and through a very sophisticated, persistent effort, they brought about the passage of a Claims Settlement Act, one of the largest and most complex acts ever enacted by the Congress.
Did you know that the relations with the natives is one of the first and oldest responsibilities of the United States government? It's actually in the Constitution.
Article 1, Section 8. The Congress shall have power to regulate commerce with foreign nations, and among the several states, and with the Indian tribes.
Alaska became a state in 1959. When the state started selecting lands, the native land claims movement kicked into high gear. It took many years of hard work and sacrifice. The law was passed in 1971. Well, I'll just add that since it involved federal lands and native tribes, the law dealing with land claims was passed in Congress, not in the state. Ready now?
Congress finds and declares that there is an immediate need for a fair and just settlement of all claims by natives and native groups of Alaska, based on Aboriginal land claims, ANCSA, Section 1A.
All right, good job, Connor. So, the basics. Not so complicated, really. The Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act extinguished all Aboriginal land rights, and in their place awarded 44 million acres of land to the Alaska Natives. It also provided for almost $1 billion in compensation for giving up their claims.
Congress also created regional and village corporations to receive the monies and administer their lands. Congress wanted to avoid its previous Indian policies of reservations, which rarely worked, and try something new. An experiment in self-determination, they called it.
That's big. Self-determination means people controlling their own lives and not depending on others to run their lives for them.
So, I always like counting. There are 4 basic parts to ANCSA: the people, the land, the money, and the corporations, right?
An A for you, Connor. Let's start with people. Okay, who has a remote? I got this. There were nearly 80,000 Alaska Natives alive on December 18, 1971, who could participate in ANCSA. Most lived in Alaska, but some lived in the lower 48, even other parts of the world.
Alaska Native is not only what we call ourselves as a group, but it's an official legal definition of indigenous people of Alaska, just like there are Native Hawaiians and Indians of the lower 48.
And you're Alaska Native, right?
I'm Athabascan and Alaska Native.
And you are Send?
Thanks for asking. I'm Yupik.
And you are Send?
I said that I'm Yupik. Yupi-Yugwa.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so let's move on. Next, land. 44 million acres were conveyed under ANCSA. It sounds like a huge amount of land, but when you remember that it was land granted to the people who had a valid claim to the entire state, the settlement seems relatively small. In fact, it was only 10% of the state.
It's all like perspective. Here's 44 donuts. Each one...
Do you want a donut?
Thanks. Each one represents 1 million acres. Looks like a lot, but when you realize that that stack is only about 10% of the total, wow, 444 donuts. Geez, I'm hungry. Anyway, that's about 424 million acres. Alaska's pretty big.
Glad you noticed. Of the 44 million acres, 16 million acres went to the regional corporations, and that included both the surface and the subsurface. When we talk about owning land, we're not just talking about the surface, but also what's beneath, what they call the subsurface estate. When you think about where your oil comes from, then you can see why some lands were more desirable than others. Another 22 million acres went to village corporations. This land was generally located around the village itself and was made up of prime subsistence areas.
Subsistence means hunting and fishing and stuff.
And gathering food like blueberries. We like to call it living off the land and sea.
Remember that after the ANCSA land selections, Alaska natives could no longer seek land claims. That's what extinguished claims means. That's it.
We knew ultimately that the pressure was always going to be on for a financial type settlement. And so we stressed the land more than the money part.
Which brings us to the money.
The dough, the moolah, the clams.
In compensation for the millions of acres Alaska natives no longer can claim, ANCSA paid out about $962 million over a period of about 11 years. Because it took so long to pay out the money, inflation made it worth less.
That means that by the time they actually got the money, it wasn't worth $962 million.
Not even close. So, to demonstrate, let's pretend it's 1971, the year ANCSA was passed. If I had $1, how many candy bars could I buy?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
But I didn't get this dollar till 1982. So now, it's 1982. I finally have it. How many candy bars can I buy now?
2.
Ouch.
The money was paid out between the regional corporations, village corporations, and shareholders according to a complex formula. It helped get the corporation started, but it was not really enough to keep them running.
Which leads us to the fourth basic provision of ANCSA, the creation of corporations. Am I right in saying that this is where they really did things differently?
You learn quickly, dude. Native leaders in Alaska could see that the reservation system of the lower 48 wouldn't work. ANCSA created 13 regional corporations, including 12 in Alaska, and one that was created later to represent Alaska natives living outside the state. Alaska natives who were enrolled were made shareholders when they received 100 shares of stock.
Another provision of ANCSA made it really different and more native. Section 7I requires that regional corporations share 70% of the resource revenues among the corporations.
It took the corporations about 10 years to hammer out an agreement that spelled out exactly how this would be undertaken. They had to find a way to make sure that the resource-rich corporations shared with those who were resource-poor.
All that legal battling nearly broke the bonds holding Native groups together.
My dad told me that only after the Native leadership took control was it resolved harmoniously. That's the best thing about self-determination.
Wait, everything's going dark.
We're just fading to black. Chill. I have a sneaking suspicion that they wanted us to talk about empowerment and self-determination now.
You know what? I think you're right.
Hey. Can I try that?
Of course, yeah. No, it's all on the wrist.
The corporations were created, we got the money, we got the land, we began to get into business, we began to learn, began to make mistakes, we began to do a lot of things, and we began to realize the limitations of these institutions. We found relatively quickly in the implementation of ANCSA that even $1 billion and 44 million acres of land don't go all that far when they're divided amongst over 200 corporations. And all of a sudden we were all struggling with relatively modest pieces of ANCSA with some really difficult times ahead.
So, I don't want to scare you guys, but they didn't have cell phones either.
Some villages had only one phone, And that was at the school.
They didn't even have their own computers. Personal computers were not yet invented.
You know, that is scary. No texting mom and dad for help.
Native leaders have never forgotten that ANCSA is about protecting the land.
And always have looked at ANCSA as a living document.
Open for changes that protect the land and corporations that own the land.
Originally, the corporate stock ownership of the land after only 20 years was to become available for anyone to buy.
If anyone could own the stock, anyone could own the land Alaska Natives have lived on for thousands of years.
We had the wisdom to change that.
ANCSA stock is now inalienable.
Did someone say aliens? Like aliens from outer space.
Dude, inalienable means you can't sell it.
So like they changed ANCSA. I thought it was a law.
It was a legislation. Like I said, a living document.
Sounds creepy, like an alien being.
This is what people do. They go back to Congress, fix things, and make legislation work for what's happening right now.
What does ANCSA have to do with culture? Can you Google that?
I think someone already did, and they found this.
But that effort, by and large, was to set these corporations up so that they would be successful and generate profits, and then they could decide how best to preserve their language and their culture and their traditions, and how to pass that on to their children. Because that's not really a Washington, D.C. kind of a job that you can do through law and through regulation.
He's saying ANCSA was not the place to protect Native culture. So maybe it didn't change our values.
Or did it?
We've been challenged so much in every area of our involvement, in education, in health, in economics, in government, in our own institutions, in this overarching effort that has been underway for almost 200 years to change us. And I think finally Native folks just said, we realize now that we have this inner strength to be who we are.
He sounds like my grandma.
I'll tell him you said that.
I mean, that's what Amma said a lot.
Our young people are getting educated. Me, I live in two worlds. During the day when you're working, you live in the Western world. You go home, you live in your own, my Aleut lifestyle. When I'm home, I speak Aleut. Today, the young people are, it's kind of sad, but they're more used to the Western culture than they are their native. And they're educated and sophisticated. They're learning to negotiate, learn the aspects of how to do business.
The oncoming of television, of having instantaneous gratification, and those kinds of life changes that we are all experiencing is changing the values of Alaska Natives more so than ANCSA has.
No matter what you think of ANCSA, the fact is, the ANCSA corporations today are a huge success story.
The Native corporations are what they call an economic engine, creating thousands of jobs in Alaska, pouring millions of dollars into scholarships, dividends, and cultural programs for shareholders.
11 of the 15 and 21 of the top 40 largest private companies in Alaska are Native corporations.
Those people who participated and nurtured these ANCSA corporations along really should be proud and should not feel like they have to second guess themselves on whether it was the right thing to do, that it will show itself in time to be, as I said, part of the solution.
The future means us, all of us, you and me.
Can the next generation of leaders accomplish what their elders had in mind with ANCSA and keep the land protected?
Are we up to the challenge of making ANCSA work in the future? What changes are in store for all Alaskans?
Stay tuned. Now you can fade to black.